Gamajoba. And if you don't recognize that language, then you won't have a clue where I'm off to. So stick around. Very quickly, in case it's your first time here, I'm Catherine. I'm 64. I'm single, and I'm making my escape from Cardiff. Since my mum died in 2023 and my son 2 months later took off to Australia, I'm here by myself and I have no ties to this city anymore. And so I'm making my escape. A big driver of that is the weather, which I've talked about in previous videos. So if you want to hear me ranting about the Welsh weather, go and listen to one or more of those. But yeah, a big driver is the weather. And I did think about just moving somewhere drier in the UK. But right now, I think that's a bit like changing deck chairs on the Titanic. So I just feel that my life has become quite insular and a bit kind of safe and predictable. And I just basically want to give it a rocket up the backside. So I've taken the decision to move abroad. But the big question for me was, where do I go? And that's the decision that I've been wrestling with over the past couple of weeks since I started this channel. I mean, I had kind of been pondering it in the back of my mind previously, but not sort of seriously. And, you think about all the usual places, Spain, France, Portugal, love Portugal. But I hadn't really been thinking about it seriously. And then when I thought, no, I've got to get out, I thought, well, actually, I'll start a YouTube channel because it will keep me accountable and it will kind of crystallize my decision and sort of make me start pushing forward to take progress. So that's what I did. And so for the past couple of weeks, I have been researching different places that I might like to go, and I've come up with one. So let me just take you through a bit of the process. Now, before I started this journey, I barely used AI. I mean, I think I used it maybe twice in some kind of vague experimental way, not using it much more than like you would use Google. And to be fair, I am using it a bit like Google, but it's just much more in-depth and much more interactive. So when I first started, I sort of said to Grok, right, I want places. First of all, I told that I was from Cardiff, and I said, I can't stand the climate, and I want opposite to that. So I said, I want places that aren't too far north. I don't want snow, and I don't want dark, long dark nights in the winter. I don't want to go too far south because I can't cope. I mean, I love it, but I can't cope with too hot for too long. I wanted sort of somewhere that was a lot drier than Cardiff, that had sunshine, sunny winter days, not this kind of constant cloud cover that we live under in Cardiff, or basically in the UK a lot of the time in the winter. And that I wanted it to be within a 4-hour flight time of the UK. I wanted there to be an expat community. I wanted mild winters and not too hot summers. So they were kind of some of the parameters that I gave Grok. I keep wanting to say Gok, but Gokwan and I are not on first name terms. So they were some of the parameters that I gave Grok, and I've got this habit of calling Grok it started coming up with suggestions, which then I started researching. So initially, I was really drawn to a place in southwest Bulgaria called Sandanski. It had the perfect microclimate for what I was looking for. It had the expat community. It had the 4-hour flight time to the UK, and it also had decent local amenities, which was also important to me. But then I hit some real world roadblocks, the visa requirements. The thing is, to qualify for entry into Bulgaria to work as a digital nomad or freelancer, you have to be able to prove a minimum level of income, which equates to about £28,000 per year. Now, that's not a lot particularly. I mean, I was earning well above that prior to my mum dying in 2023 and my son taking off. But when those two things happened, I was able to pay off my mortgage, and B, my outgoings plummeted when I was no longer having to feed a 19-year-old boy. And then obviously things like I got a discount because he had turned 19 when he left, so I got a discount on my council tax and just everything else. Everything else just your costs go down. So I cut back on my hours because I was feeling quite when those two things happened. So I just kind of think, I'm just not in the mood. So I cut back. I mean, as I said, my outgoings have plummeted. I don't really spend a lot of money. I mean, I don't really go out very much. I don't do very much. So so I kind of didn't really need the money. So I just cut back on my hours. But obviously, this has now come back round to bite me on the backside. I mean, the only thing I really did do was I have a very good friend, and she does house sitting more or less full time. I mean, she has got, if she's kind of stuck, she's got a daughter who lives in London, and she's got various friends that she can go and stay with them in between times. But yes, so what I was doing was if she was in a nice place, she'd say, "Oh, I'm going to be here for like a month or whatever," and she'd send me the photos, and if it was nice, I'd go, "Oh, I think I'll go and stay there for, go and stay with her for a few days." So that would just break up the monotony. And I've seen some, stayed in some lovely places, some beautiful houses that she stayed in. I mean, I only go to the nice ones. If she's somewhere it's not very nice, I don't bother. But normally they've got lovely dogs. I mean, she's done mostly dogs. She's done a few cats. Um, she she even did llamas in one place. That was a hoot, but I didn't get down there. But anyway, so as I said, so this decision of not working and only working part time has now come back to bite me on the backside, and they won't accept the rental income I'm going to get from renting out this property, which will be just under £14,500 a year, which would have taken me over the minimum requirement, but they won't accept that as proof of income. They want it all to come from your earnings as a digital freelancer. So that was roadblock number one. Then roadblock number two. So I'm just like making sure I keep up here with my notes. So roadblock number two. Well, it wasn't really a roadblock, but it was kind of something to keep in your mind. And I don't know how I missed this first time around, but when you are working within Bulgaria as a freelancer, you have to pay their state social security. I mean, it's mandatory. There's no way around it. And they obviously apply some kind of equation to that, and they work out how much you're going to pay. And there is a cap of, and this is monthly, there is a cap of £480 per month. And I worked it out in a scenario that I would be earning 40,000 as a freelancer. And for me, that would have equated to a monthly payment of £474 a month. Now, it's not quite as bad as it sounds, because that, for some people, for a while, that's almost like a mortgage payment. It's not as bad as it sounds, because the thing that attracted me to Bulgaria, one of the things that attracted me to Bulgaria in the first place, apart from the microclimate in this place called Sandanski, was the tax rate, which is a flat kind of 10%. But the way they work it out, it basically becomes 7.5%. So you're paying only 7.5% on your earnings, but then you've got this extra amount, which is quite significant in terms of your social security payment. So those were kind of, well, the social security payment isn't as big of an issue because of how much you pay in tax, but certainly I am not able to go to Bulgaria at the moment. I have to spend probably the next 12 months building up my teaching again, getting back my hours, which I'm probably do quite quickly. It won't be a problem. But I need to be able to do that for sort of between 6 and 12 months, and probably closer to 12 months. And then there is a lot of bureaucracy when you're then trying to get everything approved. There's quite a lot of bureaucracy to go through. And I would happily go through that. That's not necessarily an issue. But then I thought, okay, so what do I do now? So I'm thinking, well, I still want to go. I don't really want to sort of stick around here indefinitely until that all gets sorted. So I thought, well, I'll start looking for kind of like a bridge place. Where can I go in the meantime? So this time I put into Grok, where is it? Where is there across Europe where I can have great sort of advantageous tax frameworks for digital nomads, and I can kind of go in and work without all this, paperwork and bank statements and all that kind of stuff. And I think at that point I didn't put any other parameters about the weather or about flight times or that kind of stuff. And something popped up, and it was Georgia. Now I was like, oh, now I'd never considered Georgia. It's kind of on the far side of the Black Sea, and I think that it's maybe I just hadn't considered it. But the more I looked into it, the more I thought, actually, this this sounds really good, and specifically Tbilisi. Now, I had said originally that I wanted to go and live in another city, because I like cities. I mean, I know I haven't been doing much here, but I think, as I said, what my life needs is a rocket up its backside. And I think if I was living in a city, there'd be so much more to do. In Tbilisi, they have a great kind of expat community, not just sort of the youngsters who are backpacking and working there for maybe 3 or 4, 5, 6 months, but they also have a very established expat community for people in their 50s and 60s, because they've always had diplomats working there, and many people retire there. And so they have a really good expat scene for older people, which really attracts me, because it'll just be kind of, they've groups, so you can go along and you can meet people and you introduce yourself and you sort of start finding your feet and establishing yourself, and building a social life for yourself. So that all sounds great. The other thing that's really good, is that English is very widely spoken in Tbilisi. Obviously, they have travellers coming from all over the globe. Um, None of them are going to speak Georgian, let's face it. So, God bless them, all the Georgians are really fluent in English. So, although I do intend to make an attempt to learn Georgian as much as I can, then it's going to be so helpful if you have got people speaking English. And in Sandanski, although there was English spoken, it was obviously much less prolific than it will be in a international capital city. And I don't have the roadblock to go into Georgia that I had to get into Bulgaria. They don't require bank statements to show how much money you're earning, or how you're going to support yourself. You can go in on a tourist visa, which is automatically 365 days. But funnily enough, that kind of renews every time you leave the country. So if I left within those 365, no, it's not 45, 65 days. If I left within those 365 days and went back to the UK for a long weekend or something and came back, at the point of my re-entry, those 365 days start all over again. So, yeah, you can just kind of do that indefinitely. I think I've read that border guards start to get a bit sniffy if people sort of go over to Armenia for an afternoon and come back in. I mean, you can do that. That also then would restart your clock. And I think if they see you doing that too often, they can get a bit sniffy. But so far, it's not illegal, and you can do that. So you can just stay there indefinitely, and you don't have to worry about all the paperwork of renewing visas and all that kind of stuff. The other thing is that you can start working almost immediately. You do have to get a permit, which normally takes about 4 weeks, although you can pay, it's £113 in UK money, and you can get that expedited, and then it normally only takes 2 weeks, and you can crack on then. You do have to pay health insurance. and this is mandatory. But there are various levels, and I think the state one for state care at a state-run hospital is about £30 a month. But you can opt to pay more, which I will, because I'm older, and you never know. I mean, I hope I don't need repatriating in a box or anything like that. I hope if I need repatriating, it's because I've got a broken hip or something. I mean, touch wood, I don't get a broken hip either. But yeah, let's not dwell on the downside, shall we? So, but I will opt for better health insurance. But you can go and sort of top-notch health insurance. It's about £60 a month. Get £60 a month as opposed to £474 a month. And although I said, Bulgaria has a 7.5% tax rate, Georgia's is 1%. So yeah, I thought, oh my God, I mean, it's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? So the more I was looking into Georgia, I was thinking, or Tbilisi specifically, I was thinking, oh, this sounds amazing. And the other thing was as well, I mean, I know I can't go into Bulgaria, but when I was thinking about Sandanski a bit more, I was thinking, well, it probably is a bit quiet for me because I had said originally I wanted to go and live in a city. And although the flight times from their local international airports are less than 4 hours, it's the word local because basically the two airports I would have to choose from would either be Sofia, capital of Bulgaria, to the north, or I'd have to go down to the south and cross over the Greek border and go to Thessalonica airport. And now both those journeys are around 2 hours. So although the flight time is under 4 hours, you've got a 2-hour drive, whichever one you go to. So in Tbilisi, although the flight time is longer, it's just under 6 hours. It's between 5.5 and 6 hours. It's on the airport's on your doorstep. It's about a 30-minute taxi drive, and the taxi is about £7. So yeah, so that kind of put those kinds of two things into perspective. So then I started looking at the climate, because obviously that's one of the major drivers for me leaving Cardiff in the first place. And yes, it is a bit colder in the winter than I would like it to be, and it is hotter in the summer for longer than I'd also like it to be, ideally. But the thing about it is, the apartment I could afford will definitely have air conditioning. So you can turn your air conditioning on in the summer, and you can turn your heating on in the winter, and you won't be having a minor heart attack at how much it's about to cost you. So that makes things a lot easier. And I always did say, I was prepared to compromise. And the thing about the winter there is that the days are sunny. So it's cold, but it's, dry and it's sunny. That makes a huge difference. In fact, Tbilisi gets 700 hours more sunshine every year than Cardiff does. It gets less than half Cardiff's annual rainfall. And during the winter months, Cardiff averages 15 to 17 days of rain a month, and Tbilisi averages 4. It does snow occasionally in Tbilisi, but it's never much more than 1.5 inches or something like that. And because of the fact that it's a city and high rises and all that kind of stuff, it melts away pretty soon, and it's not really an impediment to getting around. That was one of the things about Sofia in Bulgaria. They kind of get quite sort of snow-packed in Sofia at various times during the winter. So that was another kind of like, if I was thinking about going to Sofia, I think that would put me off. Being a capital city, Tbilisi also has a great cultural life. So it has, theatres, concert halls, art galleries. And although I haven't looked into the prices, I mean, prices just seem to be generally about 50% of what they are in the UK. And so, hopefully when you're buying a ticket to go see something, you only kind of go at the cost of the tickets, because they can be pretty high here if you want to get a decent seat and don't want to be stuck in the gods somewhere. The other thing about Tbilisi is I won't really need a car. Well, I won't need a car. Um, I'm going to sell my car before I go. Um, and if I'd moved to Sandanski, I was thinking, well, I'll sell my car and I'll use that money to buy a small car out there. I'll put the money towards the car out there, second-hand car. And I would have needed a car in Sandanski, but I won't need one in Tbilisi. So that's another lump sum of money that I can keep. And it's just another ongoing expense that I won't have to worry about when I'm living there, because apparently have an extremely good, well, everything I've read about it, their taxi service is a company called Bolt. I don't know if it's privately owned or if it's state run or whatever, but apparently it's excellent and it's very, very cheap. So yeah, so I won't need to buy a car and I can just do that. And then also, if I do need a car at any point, I checked out the prices for renting a car. Like I've got a Honda Jazz, so I just said, how much is it to rent a Honda Jazz? And in the low season, so kind of in the winter time, that would cost me anything from between £15 and £21 a day. And if it was high season, it would be around £38 to £45 a day. Now that was a kind of mid-range car. There were sort of lower cost cars or sort of more economy. That was kind of a mid-range. You could go high if you wanted to pay more, if you wanted a bigger car, but it'll only be me probably. So I don't need a big car. So if I ever did need to have a car for a week or something, then I can just hire one, and it's definitely not going to break the bank or anything like that. I also like the fact that it's an extremely safe city for women alone walking around the city. Is extremely safe. It also has what the district I'm looking at moving to is, and I'm looking at this particular area because it has very good Wi-Fi, and I need very good Wi-Fi. But it also has a fantastic Carrefour supermarket. What's it about the English and French supermarkets? But yeah, I love Carrefour. I mean, when I was in my sort of 20s and 30s, me and my two girlfriends, we would quite often, I think, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, we'd take a day off work and we'd take the ferry over to Calais and go to the big Carrefour supermarket there and stock up on wine, and just buy loads of other, French treats and things. Love it. Love Carrefour. So that's a interesting bonus to have a Carrefour supermarket as your local supermarket. And a couple of my more trivial requirements when I was talking about what I wanted from where I moved to was being able to still order off the Amazon UK website. And could I do that? And I can in Tbilisi, because I can order off the Amazon UK website. Under my Prime payment, it gets shipped to a freight forwarding company and gets sent over. Whatever, costs very little to do that, and then you can pick it up in the sort of drop-off point within Tbilisi. You can choose whichever one's closest to you, or they deliver it to you for about £1.50. So that's kind of a bit of a no-brainer too. So I can do that. And I can obviously also get a VPN and hook up to all the, my English-speaking channels that I want to watch, terrestrial TV in the UK and various other UK sort of based streaming channels that I can watch. And another thing, all your kind of beauty treatments. Well, this is important to women. You're able to get your hair cut and coloured if you need to. All your beauty treatments are about half price of what they would be in the UK. And I actually went one step further because I don't know. As you get older, I hate these things. I hate them with a passion. So I was watching a woman I watch on here. She's only in her mid-30s, and she gets Botox. But the reason she gets it really is because she has I think she grinds her teeth or something, and she has this like tension in her jaw. So she gets Botox in her jaw to relax her teeth because apparently this was giving her really bad headaches. Um, and so she'd been doing it for a while, and then obviously they probably talk you into saying, "Oh, just have a little bit here," and all this kind of stuff. Well, I mean, I've never had an injection in my life. I mean, basically, you see these people get fillers, and it all goes horribly wrong, and it terrifies the living daylights out of me. And I also hate that puffed up, blubber fish look of lips. I mean, why would young girls do that to themselves? Frankly, it's beyond me. But there you go, they do. So I have never had an injection in my life. But I thought to myself, I wonder if you can get Botox with this. I wonder if there's anything they can do for this. And you can. You can get Botox injections, and apparently it sort of like really takes care of this. So, I mean, I haven't sort of looked into it properly, but the price for those, I think I looked in Cardiff, and it was sort of between, 160 quid and 300 quid an injection, a session. And I think you probably have to get it done maybe, you know, maybe three times a year. And in Tbilisi, it was between, I think it was half. So it was between, so whereas in Cardiff, it was between sort of 150 and 300. In Tbilisi, it was between sort of 60 and 120 or something like that. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll give that a whirl while I'm in Tbilisi as well. I can't remember the cost of these, and then the other thing I looked into was how much it would cost to get your bingo wings done, which is called a brachioplasty. And again, that is half. There's two things. You can have what they call a sort of what do they call it? A half arm. I don't know. A sort of small one, a mini. That's it. A mini brachioplasty. And then there's a standard one. I don't know what the difference is. I'll have to look into that. But again, so for a full-on brachioplasty in Cardiff, it was sort of between £5,500 and £7,500. And in Tbilisi, it's less than half that. So I think it was from somewhere like between 1,500 and £3,000. So if I had a few grand to spare, which I might do because I'll be saving loads of money, and I fancy risking it. I mean, I probably won't because I'm too much of a coward. I mean, I literally would have to have tried everything else to get rid of them before I would go under the knife to get rid of my bingo wings. But what I will be able to do is I'll be able to save a significant amount of money. I'd have thought, well, I definitely will be if the figures all pan out okay. And put that money away. I mean, I know he's only 22, but I have been thinking about his wedding and thinking, well, I would like to be able to sort of bung him, several grand to help towards the cost of a wedding. So if I can if I'm there for maybe a couple of years or 3 years, I don't know. I just don't know how things are going to work out. I could probably save about 15, 20 grand to give him for his wedding or deposit on a house or whatever he wants to do with it. So I don't know. Some kids want to go mad, don't they, with weddings? But I just think it just gets ridiculous. But anyway, it'll be up to him. Yes, so that is why I have decided on Tbilisi, and now it's all systems go. So I've got to start learning Georgian, and I've got to just start getting this house sorted out. I do need to still ramp up my work hours because I would like to be earning more before I go out there. But as I said in previous videos, this isn't happening until probably around next April because of various timeline issues. So that's decision made. So at least now I have a goal and I can start focusing, and I'm really excited. So if you want to stick around now, if that's all you're interested in, but if you want to stick around, then I am going to just very briefly go through the whole kind of tax situation in the UK and Bulgaria and Georgia, and show you how I will be £12,600 a year better off in Georgia than I am in the UK. And not only that, everything costs 45 to 50% lower in Georgia than it does here. So that's something that you might want to stick around for. Bye for now. Okay, so in the UK, under the scenario I mentioned, I've said I'll be earning 40,000 a year. So from that, I am able to take off my £12,570 personal allowance, which leaves me with a taxable amount of 27,430. So the tax is 5,486. Then my national insurance payments are 1,646, which is total tax and national insurance of 7,132. So take that off the 40 grand. That leaves me with an annual take home of 32,868. However, council tax. Now, for me, my council tax is 2,455 with my 25% off because I'm a single person. Why do I only get 25% as a single person? I mean, you think you should get at least half, don't you? I mean, really. Such a rip-off. Anyway, so you take that off your annual take home, and that's another almost, and for me, you know, as a single person, that's with a discount. So God knows what, I mean, and I live in a very small 2-bedroom house. I mean, God knows what people are paying in large houses, and there's, you know, 2 of them, 2 adults and families and kids and stuff. I mean, God knows what their council tax bills must be. So for me, anyway, the 32,868 take off my council tax, so that leaves me with 31,027 per annum, which is about £2,600 per month disposable income. And obviously, so your mandatory outgoings really that you have no choice about is your tax, your national insurance, and your council tax payments, and that amounts to £8,973. So then we come to Bulgaria. Same scenario, assuming an annual income of £40,000. So what they do in Bulgaria is they automatically deduct 25% of your annual income for business expenses. So they only tax you on that remaining figure, which is how I mentioned before. It works out really about 7.5% tax you're paying, although the level is stated as 10%. But with this deduction, it actually works out about 7.5%, at 7.5%. So that means you have a taxable income rate there of £30,000. Then you have what I mentioned before, this social security bill of £474 per month, which amounts to £5,683 a year. Now, you're also allowed to deduct that from your taxable income. So by the time you do that, that leaves you with £24,317 taxable income, which they tax you at 10%, which then means your total tax to pay is 2,432. So this is, you know, where although the social security payment sounds huge, because you're only paying 10% tax and because of all those deductions, it's not as bad. It doesn't work out to be as bad as it seems in the overall grand scheme of things. So you can see in that little sum where I say mandatory outgoings, mandatory OG, you've got your tax there, you've got your social security payment, which amounts to £8,115, which is £858 less than the UK's mandatory outgoings. So going over to the left-hand side of the page again, so you've got your 40,000 quid, you've got your tax and your social security taken off, which gives you your take-home pay of 31,885. Now, the thing is, for me, I would also be bringing in around £14,400 worth of rent. So calculate that in. That gives me 46,285 quid to play around with. But then I do have to pay HMRC £116 because if you look over where it says tax on UK rent, my 14,400 there's an excess there of, when you take off my personal allowance, there's an excess there of 1,830, which is taxable. But what HMRC do is they automatically deduct £1,000 for you, which they assume is going to be paying things like, agency fees or small repairs. I mean, if you think your fees are going to cost more than £1,000 a year, then you can choose to do that and just like submit an expenses claim at the end, and it could end up that you end up paying no tax on a property where where this is the kind of differential between the personal allowance and the rent you're going. Obviously, the more rent you go, the greater the differential if you're out of the country. Then you're going to have to pay more. But in this case, I've chosen to do it like, okay, I'm going to accept the automatic £1,000 deduction, which means that my taxable the taxable income on the rent is only £830, and at 20% current UK tax rate, that's £166 a year. So take that off my take home, or what the money I've got to pay with, that gives me £46,119. Now, obviously, then I have rent to pay, and where I was looking in Sandanski, this would be different if I was looking in Sofia. But at this point, I was looking in Sandanski, and I can get a really nice 2-bedroom apartment in Sandanski for about £400 a month, which would give me £4,800, and then the service charge would be about £300 per year. So that means that I've got £41,019 per annum to play about with, which is £3,418 per calendar month. Now, the other thing about Bulgaria is there's no equivalent council tax. So there are a few little things you have to pay, but most of the sort of taxes get paid by the landlord of the properties you're renting. So it doesn't fall on you. And to be honest, what there are is like negligible. I mean, I'd say they're less than £100 a year, but I think they're more like under £50 a year. So really, there's nothing even to think about. So that means that in Bulgaria, I would be £9,992 a year better off than I would be in the UK. And also the cost of living in Bulgaria is 40 to 45% less than it is in the UK. So, 10k a year better off. Not bad, is it? Then let's look at Tbilisi. So this again, 40,000 a year at 1% tax, 400 quid. 39,600 plus the rent I'd be getting, that gives me £54,000. Take off my HMRC obligation, and the rent, which is obviously, as you can see here, significantly more than it is in Sandanski because it's a capital city. I'm looking at £700 a month rent, and that will get me a really nice 2-bedroom apartment in a nice, secure, concierge controlled block. And so I'm happy to pay that. The service charge would be about £1,200 a year. So you take all that off, then you take off the £600 health insurance that I'm going to be paying, and that gives me £43,634 or £3,636 per month. So your mandatory outgoings in Georgia are literally £1,000, and everything else is kind of discretionary spend. How much I decide to pay for an apartment, what level of health insurance cover I take out. So as you can see, in Tbilisi, as opposed to Bulgaria, I'd be £2,600 a year better off. In Tbilisi compared to the UK, I'm going to be £12,607 a year better off, and the cost of living is 45 to 50% cheaper. So will I want to live there forever? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how it goes there and here. Because it's not all about money, and I know that. But if I can, be away for a good few years, then yeah, if I'm happy there, if I make a life there, then I'm looking forward to it. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting and enlightening. Hopefully see you on the next one, and thanks for watching.